At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Headquarters of ESPN.
I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour 2, Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Got a lot to do in the second hour, but we're just going to dive into it because there is breaking news that is, it's big news here in the state of Louisiana. Tyrann Mathieu stepping away from the NFL. He writes on his Instagram, "As I hang up my cleats, I'm filled with gratitude as I close this chapter of my life and officially retire from the game that shaped me in every way. From my first snap in college to my final play in the NFL, this journey has been nothing short of a blessing. Football gave me purpose, discipline, and memories that will stay with me forever. But more than anything, it gave me a community. To every coach who believed in me, every teammate who battled beside me, and every fan who showed up, cheered, and rode with me through the highs and lows, thank you. You gave me the strength when I needed it most, and your love carried me farther than I ever imagined. I hope I made you proud out there. This isn't goodbye. It's just the next chapter. Much love always, Tyrann." He's got a picture of a pair of cleats hanging up. And that is his message, that he is stepping away from football. Wow. Tyrann Mathieu's journey in this state is truly unique. And if you've listened to me at all, you know how much I hate how overused the word unique is. But his is unlike any other that I can recall. Tyrann showed up at LSU, a 3-star, undersized 5'9" cornerback. And nobody really thought much of it, and you probably couldn't pronounce his name if you looked at it. You'd probably pronounce the first name wrong, might pronounce the last name wrong. He showed up, and from the first game he ever played, which was against North Carolina and Atlanta, he made plays. I mean, he's running off the edge, forcing a fumble late in that game against North Carolina, and he never slowed down. His sophomore season at LSU is one of the greatest football seasons I've ever seen and most of you have ever seen. He did things on a football field I have quite simply never seen before. Not that he did them once, he did it routinely. He would come off the edge and strip sack a quarterback. He would take a ball carrier 20 yards down the field and just take the ball away. The first game that year was against Oregon. You had the most electrifying punt returner in the country, DeAnthony Thomas. And Tyrann just knocked the ball free, scooped it up, scored a touchdown. Made a huge play right before halftime against West Virginia, set up a Chase Clayton touchdown. I've never heard a press box do what I heard the press box in Tiger Stadium do when he made that play, when he batted the ball up in the air and caught it and ran it down to the 1-yard line against Kentucky. Ran into the end zone against Kentucky. The whole press box, which is a working environment that generally doesn't react to anything, gasped. Not because he did it once, but because he did it every single week. You heard the whole press box do it. And then you have the Arkansas game where he runs the kick of the punt back, and that sets up that avalanche for LSU. And you've got the Georgia game where he returned a punt and then almost returned a second one and was a Heisman finalist as a nickelback. And then you got the press conference the next August. I was in that press conference. We didn't know why we were there, but we were called in. There's a press conference. I don't know what day or time it was. They were all the same in fall camp at that point. Could have been a Saturday, could have been a Tuesday. I have no idea. But Les Miles walked in, said, Tyrann Mathieu's no longer a part of the football team. And at that part, when the most famous player in the country is kicked off the team because he won't stop failing drug tests, like that's a black eye. That's banishment. That's humiliation. That's being blackballed from the community. But an amazing thing happened. Tyrann took that year off, entered the draft. Cardinals took a chance on him. He reunites with Patrick Peterson, and he goes on to have a brilliant professional career, an all-pro caliber professional career, one that netted him a world championship. And then, to finish it, he brought it full circle. And he signed on with the Saints. Not only his home state team, his home city team. And I remember back when I was on the LSU beat and we were talking about Tyrann Mathieu and like who's going to draft him. He was going, well, he better not go to the Saints because he'll hang around with the same crowd he's been hanging around with and he'll never make it. He needs to get far away. And he did. He went out to Arizona. But he came back to the state. And what an incredible moment when he comes back to the state. And in that first game that he plays for the Saints, the 3 Louisiana natives started the Who Dat chant. And for these 2 years, Tyrann Mathieu hasn't been an all-pro. He hasn't been the superstar that he was at LSU or the superstar that he was in Kansas City, where he's an all-pro, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. But he's been a consummate professional, an incredible teammate, a pillar in the community, and everything you'd have never thought he could have ever been in that August 2012 press conference. That was the day where you would have said, if you were a reasonable person, like, he's never going to make it. He's too short. He was just a flair for the dramatic. He's a troublemaker. Thought he's above the law. Got multiple chances. Couldn't get it straightened out. Never going to make it. He made it. And the thing about Tyrann Mathieu, and I don't know Tyrann. Never met him. But I know people that know him. And I've watched from afar. And the crazy thing is that not only did he make it in the NFL, which is really all we were talking about at that point. It's a football conversation. Not only did he make it in the NFL, he's going to make it in the next chapter. He said that in the announcement. He's now set himself up financially to do whatever he wants. Whatever he wants. If he wanted to go buy a house in Malibu and sit on the beach for the next 40 years, he can. If he wants to coach tomorrow, maybe not tomorrow. If he wants to coach Friday, he probably can. High schools in New Orleans would love to have him. I'm sure there are college teams that would love to have him in the facility. There's one down the road. And I'm confident that New Orleans would like to have him around. He's set himself up and garnered that kind of reputation for himself out of a disastrous circumstance for a young person. At that age, with that level of fame, to disgrace himself to that degree and completely erase it over the next 13 years. It's been amazing, amazing to watch. And if you're an LSU fan, you've got one of the great seasons in the history of the school to remember. And then an NFL career to have admired. And if you're a Saints fan, in a tough time where you're trying to transition from the Breeze Payton era into a whole new world for you as the Saints, like, he came in and gave you everything he really had. I think that's evidenced today, that he just doesn't have anything else to give. Now, if there's some sort of injury or issue that, like, he just doesn't feel like he can be great, and that's why he's stepping away. Like, we don't have any. All we have is an Instagram post. I'm certain there will be a press conference later this week. But he gave you everything he had. And to me, that is an incredible legacy that he has left, and something that New Orleans natives, LSU fans and grads, and Saints fans can all be proud of in this state. And that is a rare thing, and to me is unique to Tyrann Mathieu. He's the only story I can think of that really sounds like that. Tyrann Mathieu hangs up his cleats from the National Football League and from football altogether today, making that announcement on the day the Saints report to camp. We'll talk in this week about what that means for the Saints moving forward at safety, and I'm confident kind of speak to Tyrann's legacy further as we move forward. This is very new, only broke about 15, 20 minutes ago, and we're relaying that message to you now. Tyrann Mathieu has retired from the NFL. All right, we'll keep things chugging along here on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We'll be back talking a little bit of LSU. What do the guards look like? I think it's a big, big spot for LSU.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, I'm doing a series on LouisianaSports.net called In-Depth Chart, going through every position on the field as LSU gets ready to start fall camp, and started yesterday with center and continued that on today with guard. And I feel like guard is a huge, huge, huge piece to this LSU puzzle this year. Obviously, everyone is well aware that LSU has got to do a better job running the ball, but they've also got to do a great job in pass protection for a team that figures to throw the ball a lot. And you are replacing two guys that were exceptional in pass protection. Garrett Dellinger graded out an 80.8 last year in Pro Football Focus in pass protection. Like 80.8, which is incredible. Miles Frazier was 88.8. Like, I realize that not everyone loves Pro Football Focus. I know that not everyone understands Pro Football Focus, but I now have gotten into these weeds doing these stories for LouisianaSports.net, and like a lot of your grades are in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Like a grade of 74, like that's a nice day at the office. Like nobody scores a 94. Like that's almost unheard of. So to have a season-long pass protection grade of 88.8 for Miles Frazier is exceptional at right guard. And Dellinger, based on my conversations with some LSU staffers, was considered one of the best players on the offense last year. So yes, like they've got to run the ball better this year. I get it, but thinking that you'll just pick right up where Garrett Dellinger and Miles Frazier left off is a lot to ask. Those two guys started 80 college games between them. 80 college games. That is a lot. So what are you going to do replacing a 5th-round pick of the Lions and a 7th-round pick of the Ravens? Well, it's a couple of different things. One, what happens at center, which is what I talked about yesterday, and if Braylon Moore wins that job, which I anticipate he will, DJ Chester becomes available to play guard, and I think he will. Then what's the other guard? Is it Paul Mabenga, who started the last 5 games last year when Garrett Dellinger went down? Is it Josh Thompson? I think those are the two front runners, but if Weston Davis, who's the projected right tackle, and I'll talk tackles tomorrow, if he can't do the job, whether you find that out in fall camp or at Clemson, then you might have to kick Josh Thompson out to tackle. Thompson started at tackle for Northwestern in 2023. He started at guard for Northwestern last year. He can play both. He's an insurance policy at tackle. I think he's probably the favorite to start at guard. So that's Chester and Thompson at guard, with Mabenga being the swing guy there. You've got Ori Williams, who's fighting for a job. He was recruited kind of as a tackle, but he's moved to guard now. Cohen Eccles played a little guard and center last year in mop-up time for LSU. Bo Bordelon is now a redshirt junior. He played some guard in the spring. So you've got options here at guard. Your options are Chester, Mabenga, Cohen Eccles, Bo Bordelon, Josh Thompson, and Brett Bordelon, who's a freshman. Like basically 6 options. I think you really have 3. And the 3 gets pared down to 2 if Thompson's got to go play tackle. Now, if you look at the Pro Football Focus grades from last year, and again, this series is not going to be purely Pro Football Focus, but I can't give you a lot of highlights from guys playing right guard. Like I can tell you at wide receiver, yards per catch, touchdowns, explosive plays, what the skill set is, what the 40 time looks like. At running back, I can tell you what a guy's strength is between the tackles or whether he's good in the pass catching game. How many catches did he have? Tackles at linebacker, sacks at edge. Like there are statistics I can point to. For linemen, all I can really go by is what the guys who watch the tape tell me. And the guys that watch the tape tell me that Paul Mabenga last year played 438 total snaps. He gave up 23 pressures on 268 dropbacks. That number is very high. That number needs to come down. I look at Mabenga last year, and the numbers are very underwhelming for him when he was on the field. And that doesn't mean he can't play. Because Paul Mabenga grew up in his childhood in the Congo, and he played soccer. And then he came to the States in high school in Georgia, and he's 6'6", 300 pounds. They're like, well, maybe football's a good pick. And he's still got good feet, and he's still a pretty good athlete, but he isn't a polished offensive lineman. Now, from the time he steps off the field in the Texas Bowl to the time he steps on the field at Clemson, if he does, you're talking about 8 full months. So that's plenty of time for significant development for somebody who is a very, very talented guy. But you're talking about a guy who last year in pass protection graded out 43.4. You understand that's a very, very low number. Now, Thompson, who you're counting on to be kind of a swing guy here and likely a starting guard, in Big Ten games last year averaged 54.6 in the run blocking portion of the game. That's not great either. But you've got to find a way to get that done. You just have to. And development is part of that. And cohesiveness and working together is part of that. And play calling is part of that. I know for sure that going out to spring football, as opposed to fall camp last year, the looks they are giving in the running game are completely different. Xavion Thomas is back there. They're running a lot of counter stuff. They're doing some more read option. Nussmeier kept it a little bit more. Like, there's a lot more that we're seeing. That doesn't mean they're going to call it. But I can tell you at practice, when we go out there, LSU looks very different running the ball. But none of that stuff matters unless these guys on the interior of the offensive line can knock somebody the heck out of the way. And it's got to happen. Whether it's DJ Chester and Paul Mabenga because they're the most talented dudes, whether it's Josh Thompson because he's the highest floor, if Braylon Moore fits in or if he doesn't, like, all those are variables that Brad Davis has to get ironed out quickly. But they've got to get it done. And I told you this in the opening segment of the show today. I'm going to talk about it all August and harp on it the first 2 weeks of August, starting next Thursday. Like, I'm going to harp on it. We need to see consistency when we go out there in the guys that are lining up in position groups, namely the offensive line, like 10 days in. You want to shuffle them the first few days? Fine. But you need to get a group together that's ready to go play quickly. And injuries happen in camp, and you can't control that kind of stuff. And generally speaking, some offensive linemen miss some time. You're coming from running wind sprints all day, every day, to banging helmets every single afternoon and morning. Like, there are injuries and bumps and bruises that happen in camp, and you got to be physical, and you got to learn how to run the football, so you got to practice it. There's no way around it. But continuity in what they figure out on the interior of the offensive line is massive. Right now, it feels very much like your offensive line is at left tackle Tyree Adams, at left guard, probably DJ Chester, maybe Thompson, but I think Chester. Center, Braylon Moore. Right, Thompson at guard. And right tackle is Weston Davis. That's right now what it feels like. They reserve the right to change that, and they've certainly had a lot of conversations off the field and in the film room since the last time we saw them in spring football line it up to go 11 on 11. But they need to get that group as ready as possible because this is another talking point that's not going anywhere. This group of new dudes is going to have to go out there against 2 first-round picks the first game. On the road in front of 84,000 that are screaming it down your neck. And you can call it the fake Death Valley and say anything you want to from here in your ivory tower in Baton Rouge, but it's going to be really loud and really challenging for that group to go out there and run the football and protect Garrett Nussmeier. This is as massive a fall camp for an offensive line as I can ever remember. Because you have so much expectation, you have so much anticipation, you've got so much proven talent on the outside. I don't have to guess about Aaron Anderson. I don't have to guess about Chris Hilton. I don't have to guess about Berrien Brown. I don't have to guess about Caden Durham. I don't have to guess about Garrett Nussmeier. I don't have to guess about Trey Green. I don't have to guess about Brower Sharp. Like, these are proven, high-level skill position players all over the field. And if they are allowed to go do their thing, they're going to produce at a level that they have produced at in college. If they're not, LSU's going to lose a lot of games. That's just the fact of it. And so I realized that on its face, hearing a segment or reading a piece on LouisianaSports.net that highlights the offensive guards doesn't sound like the most interesting reading you've ever done at the end of July. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know if there's a more vital position group on LSU's roster currently in terms of their development over this next 6 weeks than the guards. Huge, huge fall camp for these guys. We'll see what they line up in a week from Thursday. We'll see what they settle on when they break for Clemson. There's some talent. There's a lot of experience from the transfer portal. You got to make it work. That's my look at LSU's offensive guards here as we continue our in-depth chart series on LouisianaSports.net and here on the Hunt Palmer Show. If you're looking for your LSU content, it's ramping back up. We're going to have an LSU content every single day as far as football goes from now through February. Hunt on LSU is where you can find all of it. Subscribe to the channel if you want it to go right to your homepage and your feed. Go check it out there. It's Hunt on LSU, YouTube, or wherever you find your podcast sound.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
So a lot of media days are continuing this week. Brett Bielema spoke today from Big Ten Media Days, and Rhett Lashlee was speaking today, and I don't. So I guess the ACC is cranking up today as well. I didn't see, but either way, he's talking. It may be a press conference, maybe media days. I didn't see. I just saw the quote, which is all that really matters. I don't care if he said it in Charlotte or Atlanta or Dallas. Doesn't matter. But what Rhett Lashlee said in arguing for basically making sure that all the playoff spots, or as many as possible, are earned by wins and losses in conference championships, as opposed to a committee that sits in a room and points to teams. That's what Lashlee is advocating for. And the quote that has garnered the most attention from him is that the same 6 schools have won the SEC since 1964. Not a single one is different from 1964. That's top heavy. That's not depth. And I want to start with a preface here. Rhett Lashlee doesn't have to believe what he says. Rhett Lashlee's job is to serve his own interest. He's there to argue for his team, his program, his conference, because that's where he works. It's in his best interest to speak to that. It doesn't do him any good to trash his conference or to heap praise on the SEC or the Big Ten. So he's not going to. I'm not here to call him dumb. I'm not here to call him wrong. I'm not here to even suggest whether I know he believes what he's saying or doesn't. I'm just here to react to the statement that he gave that, and again, a quote, the same 6 SEC schools have won the conference since 1964. Not a single one is different from 1964. That's top heavy. That's not depth. And so my reaction to that, calmly, coolly, collectedly, would be, Rhett, what you're saying there is that LSU winning the league and Alabama winning the league and Auburn winning the league and Florida winning the league and Georgia winning the league and Tennessee winning the league is not a deep league. Well, there aren't 55 teams in a league. There were 12 for a long time, and then there were 14, and then there are now 16. And the 2 that have added it to 16 haven't had a chance to win it since 1964. They've had a chance to win it one time. So I have a hard time suggesting they don't add to a conference's depth when they've been in the conference for an hour and a half. Every college athletics conference has teams that have proud traditions and has teams that don't. And when we talk about crowning champions, we just simply don't have to cater to Vanderbilt. We don't have to cater to Kentucky. We don't have to cater to Duke. We don't have to cater to these teams that have been laughingstocks for decades. They show up, they put on their pads in August, they compete for 12 weeks, they lose a ton of games, they might go to a bowl game and celebrate, they might not, and they're not going to be good the next year either. And that's the way collegiate athletics has been forever and ever, amen. But to suggest that a league that has had 6, call them national powers, given a date and time, not deep and just top heavy, is insane. Do you know what top heavy means? The West Coast Conference in basketball, where Gonzaga's awesome and St. Mary's is pretty good and nobody knows on a given day what Pepperdine or Santa Clara is doing at all. And we don't have to worry about them crowning a championship at all. It doesn't matter. The SEC is insanely deep. And the top of the SEC, if you want to call it top heavy, laughs at the top of the ACC. In the middle of the SEC is better than the middle of the ACC. I'm not saying every time they play they're going to win, but to sit here and actively say out loud that having 6 schools do great things in football is not depth in a conference is disingenuous. It just is. I'll say it again, and so you can hear it as it flows. You're telling me that this is not depth. Well, LSU's won it and national championships, and Auburn's won it and national championships, and Alabama's won it and national championships, and Florida's won it and national championships, and Georgia's won it and national championships, and Tennessee's won it and a national championship, and say that's not a deep league. Come on, man. What you need? How many teams would need to win the league and national championships to make it deep? 10? You need 10? Well, look around. So we don't have any deep leagues? That doesn't make any sense. I understand that people got tired of the Southeastern Conference winning every single year. I understand that people hated watching the 9-6 game in Tuscaloosa and then a rematch where LSU didn't score a touchdown because they couldn't move the ball past the 50-yard line. I understand people don't like that. I understand that if you live on the West Coast or you live in the Midwest or you coach in the Big 12, that you're going to sit here and say, well, I think you got to look elsewhere. The SEC's just getting propped up. I think if you're Danny Cannell and you've made a Twitter parody account essentially on hating on the SEC, that's fine. You cannot like it. But to sit here and try to argue against the success of the league, you're just going to waste a bunch of breath. The top of the Big Ten is more than capable of competing with the SEC. Ohio State has proven it. Michigan has proven it. And I would contend that Penn State deserves a seat at the table with a lot of these programs. Or am I going to take Penn State against Georgia the next 5 years? I'm not. I'm not even going to take them against Texas the next 5 years. But do they deserve a seat at the table with LSU and Auburn and Tennessee and right now Florida? Yeah, that's fine. But then once you get to Wisconsin and Michigan State and Brett Bielema's Illinois team and the cute row the boat thing in Missouri, like, you lose me. This is a sport that doesn't have a lot of championship caliber programs. Why? Because in football, it is far less likely that the lesser team wins. So in basketball, you can spring some upsets and make some runs. In baseball, you can certainly do that as well. The lesser team wins far more often in baseball. But in football, with 85 guys, the big bad programs are going to bully the smaller programs. They just are. It doesn't happen every Saturday, but it does happen every year. So I know that you're here at SMU and that y'all had a cute run last year and that you've got your billionaire donors and all this stuff and that you want to self-serve SMU, and that makes all the sense in the world. So I'm not here to criticize Rhett Lashlee for taking a position. But you need to come up with a better talking point than, well, they got like a lot of teams that win the conference and the national championship, and no one really wins national championships in this sport, but the SEC's got like lots of teams that can do it, so they're not really deep. That's a miss. It's a misfire. And I know that he brought up this. He came loaded for bear for this press availability, thinking he had a good point. He didn't. He missed. He doesn't have to hit. That's not his job. His job's to win games for SMU. But if you want me to take you seriously, that's you got to do better than that. If you want to look at the Big 12 in the past and go, well, Texas and Oklahoma just do all of this. Why are we propping up Baylor and TCU and Oklahoma State and Kansas? That's a good talking point. Great. If you want to look at the old Pac-12 and go, well, look, this is all Oregon, brand new, and USC's history, but what are we propping up Stanford and Arizona for? Okay, that's fine. When you start rummaging through 6 programs that have done this and won multiple national championships, all that I was going back from since 1998. That's not even ancient history. You just lose a little bit of steam there, Rhett. That's all I'm saying. Taylor, you're sitting there listening to me. I'm assuming you feel a little more passionately than I do when I'm trying to be measured and say Rhett can protect himself at SMU. It's okay if he wants to talk up his program. But this just doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you're telling me that 6 schools in one league winning championships does not equate to depth.
Hell no, man. Find me 6 in the Big Ten.
You can't.
Like, I mean, Ohio State's been dominant.
So what would the list be? So Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Who's next? Wisconsin. They went to the Rose Bowl a bunch.
I mean, Oregon's never won anything.
Sorry, we got to go. Okay, so Oregon's definitely
in. They still haven't won anything.
They weren't in the league, but yeah. So Oregon's definitely in, and USC's definitely in. So that's 5 for them. And then you would have to go to like Wisconsin.
Because
for the point of my discussion, I was talking about Oklahoma and Texas. Like, they haven't had a chance to win it, so I didn't include them. If I'm bringing them in, well, now all of a sudden I've got 8 because they've won championships in the last 25 years too. So I've now got 8. But, yeah, I mean, it's just there just aren't that many good historically dominant college football programs.
ACC's got 3.
3.
Maybe. Like Florida State, Miami.
Clemson.
That's it.
And the Big 12 is
nothing anymore.
It's a joke. So it's just Saban always had his agenda, and people push back against it. Like he's like, we got to slow this down for pace of play when everybody knows he just doesn't want to play defense against it. We got to protect the student athletes. Everybody kind of poked holes in that, but at least he was buttoned up. This isn't even buttoned up. This is just a guy that's yelling at the clouds, trying to prop SMU up with the rest of it. No, we don't have to kowtow to South Carolina and Kentucky and Mississippi State. Nobody cares. The Habs that are winning, we do need to make sure that their spot is adequately assessed every December, and the AC is going to lose that battle, and they need to, quite frankly. All right, we'll come back and close it out. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. Listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Man, a great picture that Brandon Taylor, my guy BT that works with me on the LSU Sports Radio Network, pre and post game, just put up on his Facebook. It's a picture of him, Eric Reed, Tyrann Mathieu, Morris Claiborne, and Ron Brooks sitting on a bench in Tiger Stadium, full uniform. And BT captioned, "End of an era. Job well done, fellas. DBU, LSU football." If you missed this earlier, Tyrann Mathieu stepping away from football on the day the Saints report to camp, put on his Instagram, hanging up his cleats for good. And that's the end of the era for that incredible secondary from 2011. BT is going to join us tomorrow on the show to talk about it. Very much looking forward to that. I know that I've heard T-Bob talking absolutely glowing terms about Tyrann as the best teammate he ever had at LSU, and it'll certainly draw a lot of emotion, a lot of response from South Louisiana, really Louisiana as a whole, I should say, on this day, because Tyrann had such an amazing career at LSU that was obviously cut short because of bad decisions, but he rebounded from all that and turned in a sensational professional career that fittingly ended right where his football career started in New Orleans. So Tyrann steps away. I'm sure Moose will have more on that on AFR later today. We talked about it at the top of hour number 2. You can certainly catch that on demand wherever you find your sound. A lot of Tyrann reaction coming. We've got a story up on LouisianaSports.net. I think Matt, who is flying to vacation currently, is going to write a column for LouisianaSports.net on that as well. And then we'll have a lot of reaction, I'm sure, on the station today and tomorrow moving forward. Tyrann Mathieu retiring from the NFL effective immediately. One more order of business here on this Tuesday. We'll take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Presented to you by Flight by Yingling, the next generation of light beer, crafted by America's oldest brewery. Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Presented by Flight by Yingling, brewed in the oldest oldest brewery in America. It is built for Louisiana weekends, grilling, boiling, fishing, playing golf, watching the game. Flight by Yingling, the next generation of light beer.
All right, on first one, Yasir Roseman was hired by LSU basketball in April and took a job with his alma mater, Oregon, on Monday. Big loss for LSU hoops. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to take it. It's not a backbreaker for the season, obviously, but you don't want to lose a coach in the middle, late almost at this point, July. School starts in a couple of weeks. And obviously you don't play a game until beginning of November, but Matt McMahon now loses an on-bench assistant who they just hired. He was in Indiana previously. He's coached at Clemson, at Alabama. Obviously well thought of after 20 years of coaching, but when home calls, you generally listen. And there was an opening there at Oregon on the bench, and he takes it. So Matt McMahon's now got to scramble a little bit and try to fill that spot. We'll see what he decides to do there. I know Keith Hornsby just joined the staff. I don't know if that's in any sort of official capacity on the bench, and maybe it's a deal where he gets an opportunity because of timing, or maybe you go hire somebody, but we'll see what Matt McMahon decides to do.
All right, we all know about Shamar Stewart sitting out with the Cincinnati Bengals due to a contract dispute. Well, the veterans in Cincinnati reported today Trey Hendrickson was not one of them due to his contract holdout with the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow will never make the playoffs again in Cincinnati. Take it or leave it.
I will leave that.
Leave it alone.
But I don't feel good about it because they just... I hesitate to say they just do everything on the cheap because they clearly did not with Joe or Jamar or T. Higgins. I would just suggest they did it wrong. And you've got an unbelievable quarterback who, he's better with 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers, but what's the defense going to look like? You fired Lou Anarumo, he's left, and your defense was terrible last year, and now your best defensive player is a holdout, and you drafted one in the first round, and he's not in camp either. And I can't possibly fathom that anybody in Cincinnati thinks this is a great way to do business, to have one side of the ball so grossly underperform, then fail to address it because of finances. Like, you're just not doing things the right way, and it's always easier to win when your quarterback's on that rookie deal. Joe comes off that rookie deal, and now Cincinnati's back to where they always were, which is not being able to make people happy with the checkbook, and that's a bad place to be.
Yeah, I didn't like the T. Higgins signing. Like, I know Joe championed for him to come back. Sometimes you have to say, too bad, man. Let us do our job. All right, Jimbo Fisher, it was announced this morning, he is joining the ACC network as a college football analyst. Closed captioning is a must for the network now. Take it or leave it.
I'll take it.
I'll take it.
Look, I've been told this a lot in my fairly brief broadcasting career. I talk way too fast. That's just the way I've always talked, and I talk at, you can take the podcast and go like down 1x, 2x, 3x. Like, I'm minus 3x from Jimbo. So, like, he's going to have to tone it down. You get told if you get to do like a reading in church or reading at a wedding, like, slow down. And that's always a good idea because our minds get going and we want to go fast and get it over, and people are nervous and that stuff happens. But if Jimbo talks at Jimbo speed, as far as on the desk, or even more so if he's a color analyst at some point, that will not hunt. So you got to figure out somehow, some way to slow the man down. But I do think it's a great hire because Jimbo knows a ton about football and wants to be in football and wants to be passionate about it. There's some guys, they finish up what they're doing, they make a lot of money in their career, and heavens knows Jimbo's made a lot, and you're like, all right, I'm done. Like, okay, you want me to do this thing, I'll half-ass it. Some people are like, no, I want to be the best at this. And so I think Jimbo will try, but whether or not he can slow down, that's a big question.
All right, that's it.
It for Take It or Leave It, brought to you by Flight by Yuengling, the next generation of light beer. Man, a busy show, and I didn't even get to one of the things I wanted to talk about today, which now I don't even remember because I deleted off the rundown when Tyrann retired. But there's more content to be had, and there is I want to talk about Jimmy Graham briefly. Jimmy Graham stepped away from the NFL officially. He kind of already done that when he stepped away and then got on a boat and sailed to wherever he sailed to. But Jimmy's retirement upstaged just a touch today. Jimmy Graham, one of the best players in Saints history, the first real Pro Bowler of the Drew Brees era on offense. Eventually, Mark Ingram made it as an alternate. Colston never made it. I would suggest the most talented player outside of Michael Thomas that Drew Brees ever threw to. And a guy that was a great player and a great draft pick by the Saints to identify him as basically a basketball player who could come in and be a matchup nightmare at 6'7" with elite athleticism. So Jimmy Graham steps away, not breaking news because he didn't play last year, but a guy that deserves his moment and will be a Saints Hall of Famer and potentially in the Ring of Honor because of what he did in such a short time there. It was a jarring trade when they sent him to Chicago, sent him to, or was it Seattle? Chicago or Seattle? Seattle with Unger. Yeah. Huge career for Jimmy Graham, and he steps away. But Tyrann overshot him just a bit today with the abrupt retirement, a guy that was actually on the active roster. So shout out to both for a great NFL career.